Yo, guys, welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to what if everyone lived in one building. And I've been watching videos from the channel quite a lot recently, so I mean, I've enjoyed what I've seen so far, and I thought, why not do some more reactions? Plus, this sort of topic is the sort of topics I just feel like I'd enjoy. And I've watched similar videos to this. Like, I feel like I've reacted to the most crowded place on Earth, and like if we lived in the same, if we all lived in like, what's the closest humans could live together if we all lived in Texas or whatever. I don't know. It's just videos like that where it just goes into weird topics like this, and I've always enjoyed them. So yeah, I thought this could be fun. Links are in the description to my Patreon if you want to see extra reactions that might get blocked on YouTube, or just videos that I post on to the Patreon. And I mean, yeah, let's just jump into this.
From the pyramids of Giza to the Burj Khalifa, humanity has always strived to build bigger, better, and higher. But what if we built the most extreme building ever? Everyone just living in one single building. Imagine the views you would get from standing on top of this building, or looking at it from the far distance. As you'll soon find out, the levels of engineering and ingenuity required to construct this building are truly astounding. But is such a big building even possible?
No,
to build
it's
something
not.
to house every single human seems like a crazy idea. But believe it or not, this idea isn't too far off from buildings that have already been proposed. Take the Exceed 4000 for example. This 4,000 meter tall building was proposed to be built in Tokyo in 1997 and would have had 800 floors to accommodate up to 1 million inhabitants. So with
What? This would be crazy. 1 million people. That's like the size of multiple cities. Jesus.
this capacity, 1 in 14 people in Tokyo could live in this building.
That
But
would
an
be
even
insane.
grander proposal was the Tokyo Tower of Babel. This building would be able to house a population of roughly 30 million people. And
What? What am I looking at? The thing is, I wouldn't even look past this anymore because Tokyo is obviously huge. Like it's a different level to how big it is. I wouldn't be surprised if this actually became a thing. Not at all. Well, it's Tokyo. They're just like, Japan's just good at building these crazy buildings.
was designed to be 10 kilometers
Big
tall.
advanced
You
and
can
stuff.
visualize its height by imagining Mount Everest with the Burj Khalifa at its top.
Wow.
This massive tower could house the whole population of Tokyo 2 times over. You could easily house the entire population of Australia within that single building. But
Bruh.
as you can imagine, it is not that simple to build such a tall tower. At the time of the proposal, it was estimated that it would take around 150 years to complete the whole building.
Oh, okay, a
If
long
the Tokyo
time then.
Tower of Babel could house 30 million people, to house every human on Earth, we would need a building 260 times the size of this. But before we map out the blueprints of this mega
Shit.
skyscraper, let's take a look at the buildings we have so far. Believe it or not, the world record for the building with the most people living in it is not in China, the US, or Dubai, but in Switzerland. Le
What?
Lannion is an urban development in the
Look how long it is. What the fuck?
town of Vernier outside of Geneva and houses roughly 6,000 people. 1 in 6
Jeez.
people in this town lives in this one single building. The tallest building in the world, the Burj Khalifa, can hold up to 10,000 people at any given time. To build our mega skyscraper, we're gonna need to go.
I've just realised. Wait. These buildings that are proposed make the Burj Khalifa look like it's literally nothing. Okay, maybe this won't be possible. I didn't realise this was the size difference, like in terms of the height compared to the Burj Khalifa. Okay, maybe not.
Tallest building in the world,
Huge.
the Burj Khalifa, can hold up to 10,000 people at any given time. To build our mega skyscraper, we're gonna need to go much bigger and bolder. If we assume 50 square meters of living space for each person and 3 meters of ceiling height, we need something that has about 800,000 times more space than the Burj Khalifa. This
Wow.
is obviously going to be a very,
Madness.
very large building. So let's start
They
a
even,
little
like,
smaller
made it,
first
like,
and try to fit all of
sculpted
New
it and
York City
everything.
in one building. To fit all 8.4 million people currently living in New York City, you would need to build 1,680 stories into the sky. This building would have a width of 500 meters and a height of 5,040 meters. To make this building more livable, we could possibly add another
Look how it
10%
dwarfs the
onto
other
it for basic
buildings.
amenities, which would make it 5,544 meters high. But what would it be like to live in this building? Sure, the views would be amazing. When you look out over your balcony, it would simply be like looking
I mean, at certain points you wouldn't be able to see anything because you'd be so high in the sky.
out of an airplane window. But could you even walk out onto that balcony? The further you go up, the less dense the air is, and the more difficult it is to breathe. This is why people living on the upper floors would have to be constantly supplied with additional oxygen. But not only that, the upper floors would also have to remain permanently sealed to prevent pressure loss, similar to an airplane cabin. This means that you're not allowed to open a window or step onto your balcony.
Oh, no way this is gonna work then. No chance in hell. And they proposed this building in Tokyo, but bigger, I think. It was even taller, yeah. No chance that's gonna ever be a possibility.
At any time, which would make a balcony quite useless. But living so high in the clouds also has an advantage. Due to the strong winds at this altitude, wind turbines could be deployed to harvest energy and generate electricity. Another obstacle is the elevator. These tend to travel at around
an elevator journey from the top to the bottom would literally be like traveling from one, I don't know, just a long distance in the actual city. Like, obviously, you're living in the center of New York or wherever. Like, you're living in a good spot, but then you've got to travel all the way down. That's going to take a good few minutes, maybe even more than that.
Kilometers per hour. If you live 3 kilometers high, it will take you an hour to get to the bottom floor.
Okay, yeah, no chance. An hour? I said a couple minutes.
Even if we installed the world's fastest elevator, used in Shanghai Tower, it would still take you 15 minutes to reach the bottom. And as anyone who lives in an apartment building is probably already thinking, what if the elevator doesn't work or there's a fire in the building? Imagine a 5-kilometer walk consisting only of stairs. A building that tall doesn't sound very practical. So maybe instead of building higher, we'll just build wider. To decrease the height of the skyscraper, we could simply increase its width. If we take this to the extreme, we get a cube.
Still
a cube-shaped building that would house all of New York City, including 10% additional floors for amenities, would need to be 1,115 meters wide and 1,115 meters high. So this building would only be 35% taller than the Burj Khalifa.
Fucking hell. This would be seen as an eyesore, right? Because they could even like make it look good and all that kind of stuff, like glass. Just the structure would be like, they'd make it look nice. But I'm still sure it would just be like, it would be an eyesore. Because I don't know, maybe not. I mean, I feel like it would be. But again, like if you've got like sort of, because obviously this is just a cube, but then you've got balconies and you've got like sort of gardens. You know how there's like the garden buildings where there's just like greenery all around. You have that. Maybe it would look a lot nicer. I don't know. Could be quite cool, but again, it's not going to be possible because obviously the whole of New York isn't going to stay in this. But even if just a smaller version, like this big, for 1 million people, like in Tokyo, maybe that would be a possibility. I don't know.
And could be placed in Central Park, occupying only 1/3 of its total area. But even still, this wouldn't be as simple as it looks. It would disrupt the skyline, it would disrupt air travel, and it would even disrupt the weather. And it would be extremely expensive. The Burj Khalifa cost $4.1 billion to build. If we just assume that something about 850 times in volume also costs 850 times as much, the cube would cost over $3.5 trillion. However, this is using Dubai prices. It costs significantly more to build something in New York, meaning that the construction of the New York cube would actually cost $5.4 trillion. To give you an idea, that's about
1/4 of the US GDP.
25% of the 2021 GDP of the entire United States.
Oh,
In
wow.
addition, the construction of the Burj Khalifa took 6 years. If we again simply assume that something 850 times the volume also takes about 850 times as long to build, it would take 5,100 years for the New York cube to be finally completed. But that's obviously a very, very long time, and who knows what the world will be like by then. Even if the Egyptians had started building the New York cube at the time of the pyramids of Giza, it would still not be finished for another 500 years. While the size of this building exceeds anything we have ever built on Earth, it's nothing compared to what we need to house all the people of the world in one building.
Yeah, this is
so
New York.
Let's scale things up.
God damn.
What would a building look like that the whole world could live in? One thing is for sure, since we would all be living in a giant building in New York City, you may no longer be in the country you usually live in. This means that you may have trouble watching some of your favorite movies and TV shows, and that's why you need NordVPN.
Getting his money, you know how it is. You gotta love to see it. Let's get back to the damn video.
/skyscraper. If we assume the same footprint as our skyscraper in New York City to accommodate all 7.9 billion people currently alive, we would need to build a skyscraper with 1.7 million floors. The world skyscraper would be so massive and tall that people on the middle floors would be able to see the International Space Station fly by from their windows. You would essentially be building into outer space. Traveling from top to bottom by elevator would be a longer journey than going from Vancouver to Miami, a journey that takes 8 hours by plane. But what about construction materials? The Burj Khalifa required 39,000 tons of steel. However, the world skyscraper has roughly 800,000 times the volume of the Burj Khalifa. So if we assume, again simplified, that this building requires 800,000 times as much material, we would need 31 billion tons of steel. But the world can only produce 1.86 billion tons of steel per year. Clearly, the resources and technology are not available for this building, and we need to look elsewhere for materials. One of the most ambitious construction projects proposed at the moment is the space elevator, which will allow people and objects to travel up to space without the use of rockets.
Holy
the material
shit,
proposed for this is the carbon nanotube, mainly because of its much greater strength and lighter weight. Although there are still numerous problems with this material, it could be the key to humanity building further up into the sky and eventually constructing the world skyscraper. But for now, a building this tall clearly wouldn't work, so let's try a cube-shaped building again. Using the same assumptions as before, a cube-shaped building that could house all the people in the world would have to be about 11 kilometers wide or tall, or roughly 945 New York cubes. Surprisingly, this is not that big in direct comparison to the tower version. The World Cube would be as tall as the Tokyo Tower of Babel, with a Jeddah Tower on top. In terms of area, it could almost fit into Pelham Bay Park in New York, the largest park in the state. But how much would it cost to build? If we assume the same construction prices as for the Burj Khalifa, this building will cost just over $3.3 quadrillion.
There's not even this much money in the world. Where's this gonna come from?
If we wanted to build this in New York, it would cost 5.1 quadrillion, or roughly 12 times the total wealth of the whole world. If we again follow the logic that it took 6 years to build the Burj Khalifa, it would take 4.8 million years at the same rate. If the price wasn't already a massive stumbling block, this most certainly is. Even if it did take only 10 years, the world's population grows by 1% every year, so the world cube would need to be extended by 1% every single year. Ultimately, it looks like this building would be logistically impossible, but this doesn't mean that this milestone could never be achieved. When they were designing the pyramids in ancient Egypt, they couldn't possibly have dreamt that their buildings would have been dwarfed by something 6 times their height. Did people 2,000 years ago think it would be possible to visit the moon? As long as humans continue to innovate, evolve, and push boundaries, there's no telling what can happen. For now, it's just a crazy idea. But maybe one day, maybe in millions of years, we'll all be neighbors.
Damn.
What do you think about this idea? Do you think we should try to build the world skyscraper?
Probably not, but it would be cool to see the Tokyo ones were interesting. I mean, that seems a bit more possible, but again, then I saw the size of them and I was like, okay. What the hell? I was like, okay, that seemed a bit too big. But yeah, I enjoyed this video. If you want more of this kind of stuff for me to watch, let me know in the comments and I'll be sure to do so, because again, I like these engineering type things. So, I mean, yeah, that's it. Until next time, like, subscribe. Peace.